When news broke that Phil Robertson had passed, the Robertson family braced for the expected heartbreak. But they weren't ready for what came next. The man who had preached simplicity, faith, and discipline left behind a legacy far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. When the lawyer opened the envelope containing Phil's final instructions, the room went quiet. They had prepared for grief, but nothing could prepare them for the powerful message Phil had written. In the months leading up to May 2025, Phil's health took a devastating turn. The man who had weathered storms, preached with conviction, and stood unshakable was beginning to fade. In December 2024, the family revealed Phil's early-stage Alzheimer's diagnosis, and fans expected a slow decline. But the truth was far more brutal. His condition worsened rapidly, robbing him of both memory and physical strength. At first, it was subtle: misplaced items, repeated questions. But soon, Phil began forgetting entire stories, or even the day of the week. The once sharp, unbreakable patriarch was slipping away. By April 2025, the family could no longer hide the truth. On an emotional episode of the Unashamed podcast, Jace admitted, "He's not good. We're just making him comfortable now." Phil, whose voice had once carried power, now struggled to speak. But through the pain, he remained calm. He had always spoken of death with certainty. "Never fear. Don't cry when I die," he'd often say. "Dance, sing, but don't cry." His words had been a family mantra, but when the end came, none of them could follow it. In the quiet hours of May 25, 2025, Phil Robertson passed away at home, surrounded by his family. He was 79. His son Jace was the first to share the news. "My dad has gone to be with the Lord today." Willie and Corey echoed the sentiment, balancing grief with gratitude for the years they'd shared with him. The funeral that followed was exactly what Phil would have wanted. No cameras, no reporters, just family and close friends gathered in silence, praying and remembering. They tried to honor his request not to cry, but the grief was too great, the love too deep. But it wasn't the funeral that truly broke the family. It was what came next. The day after Phil's funeral, his family gathered in a lawyer's office for the reading of his will. They expected a simple division of assets, but received handwritten letters from Phil instead. Messages about love, guidance, and legacy. Phil's $10 to $15 million fortune came from Duck Commander, Duck Dynasty, and his speaking and writing. But the real shock was the meaning behind the gifts. Miss K received the family estate, Alan his religious writings, Jace and Jep were entrusted with Duck Commander's legacy, and Phyllis received land with an apology for the years they'd been apart. Willie, who brought Duck Commander to mainstream America, inherited control of the business, with a message to protect both the faith and legacy. It wasn't until the final letter was opened that the tears came, not from what they had gained, but from what they had lost. A legacy built in the swamps of Louisiana. To understand the weight of Phil Robertson's will, the family had to look back at where it all began. Born in 1946, Phil Robertson grew up poor in Louisiana, where hunting was a necessity for survival. His early struggles shaped him into a tough, self-reliant man, deeply skeptical of anything that pulled him from the land. But Phil wasn't just a swamp kid. He was talented. His athletic ability earned him a football scholarship to Louisiana Tech, where he became the starting quarterback in 1966 and 1967. His backup? Future NFL legend Terry Bradshaw. Yet instead of pursuing a football career, Phil walked away to focus on hunting. "I'd rather hunt ducks than have large, violent men stomp me in the dirt," he said, a declaration of his preference for freedom over fame. In 1972, Phil turned that freedom into a business, starting Duck Commander from his home. With Miss K by his side, the business grew slowly at first, but exploded when Willie returned from college with a vision to modernize everything. The empire that made Phil a multimillionaire was built on sacrifice, faith, and family unity. Fame came later in 2012 with Duck Dynasty. What started as a reality show about a family business became a cultural phenomenon. At its peak, over 11 million viewers tuned in weekly to hear Phil's blunt truths about faith and family. What they saw wasn't an act. It was the real Phil Robertson. Fame didn't soften Phil Robertson. It made him louder. In 2013, an interview with GQ ignited a firestorm when Phil spoke candidly about homosexuality and race, leading to backlash and a temporary suspension from A&E. Despite advertisers pulling away, conservatives rallied behind him, and Duck Commander merchandise flew off shelves. A&E reinstated him, and Phil never apologized. His beliefs, he said, were grounded in scripture. Over the next decade, Phil became a fixture in conservative politics, endorsing Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. To some, he was a symbol of faith, to others, intolerance. But Phil remained unmoved by either praise or criticism, believing he was doing what God expected. Behind the fame, however, the family struggled with its weight. Ratings dropped, and Duck Dynasty ended in 2017 after 11 seasons. In 2025, A&E announced Duck Dynasty, The Next Generation, without Phil. Alzheimer's had taken too much, but his influence remained. Before fame, there was a darker time few knew about. Struggling with alcohol and violence, Phil left deep scars on his marriage. Miss Kay, who married him at 17, kept their home together with prayer, hoping for change. Then came the turning point. In a small church in West Monroe, Phil found Christianity and his life was transformed. He rebuilt his marriage, apologized to his children, and focused on working, providing, and teaching. His conversion reshaped the Robertson family. Faith became central to everything: his business, books, speeches, and the Unashamed podcast he hosted with his sons. Even in his final months, as Alzheimer's took its toll, Phil's voice remained steady, his convictions unchanged. This was the man the family honored in his will, not the millionaire TV star, but the man who had risen from failure and lived out his faith. The fortune he left behind was significant, but the redemption behind it moved the family to tears. Phil's death on May 25, 2025, marked the end of an era. His passing closed the chapter of a time when self-made Southern entrepreneurs, trusting in God and resisting modern culture, thrived. Despite his declining health, Phil still recorded a few final podcast episodes, his voice strong until the end, a last gift for his family and fans. His private funeral reflected his life. No cameras, just family, old friends, Bible readings, and long silences. As they grieved, the family moved forward with the responsibility he left them. Willie took over Duck Commander, Jace continued the podcast, and A&E prepared for Duck Dynasty, the revival. Phil's influence still guiding the way. The letters in Phil's will weren't just about money, they were reminders of who they were, where they came from, and what he expected them to uphold. That's why the family cried, not for the wealth, but for the love and legacy behind it.